Another week and two more crazy Dabo Swinney transfer portal quotes. Don't you just love the off season? So much to sit around the water cooler and talk about. A lot to get to. Sit back, relax, put the earbuds in, turn up the volume because it is time for Around the Paul. I'm Garrett Mitchell along with Clifton Kennedy, and we are so thrilled tonight to be joined by Dustin Black. And it's great anytime we can have Dustin on the show as well. So, guys, a lot to talk about, but we're just going to jump right into the Dabo Swinney transfer portal thoughts. And these days, they seem to be about a dime a dozen. The only thing is they just get a little more further out there with every one that comes. So let's go back a few days. The first of the two, maybe that raised some eyebrows a little bit, was that when prompted and asked about the transfer portal, why don't you use it? Do you look harder at guys in the portal? What's the method there? Well, one of the wonderful sound bites that Coach Swinney provided was, well, look, we just signed an entire class of transfers. They're just transferring from high school to Clemson. I'll be perfectly honest. I'm not sure that that was the correct choice of words, nor did it impart the message that I think Clemson fans wanted to hear. So, thoughts?
Go ahead, Dustin. I'll let you go first.
Well, I mean, I definitely thought it was interesting. If you watch the interview, it almost felt like he kind of said it on the fly. I know Dabo's a really calculated guy when it comes to how he runs his program. But I think a lot of these interviews, he's such a free-flowing speaker that a lot of this stuff just comes to him and he kind of just says it. I don't think a lot of the things that, people get sound bites and headlights from Dabo are really things that he's really thought about beforehand. I think he just gets talking and he just, he wants to talk to people like he's known them for 10 years or so. And that's just how he interviews.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's just like the Tyler from Spartanburg, right? I mean, it's the same type of thing.
Who could forget Tyler?
And I know, right? It's just like that, if you ask me. I mean, he does. He talks to people like he's known them, and then things like that come out, and you're like, what did you just say? Like, yeah. Do you really believe that, or are you just saying that? Like, so it was definitely interesting. Thoughts and comments from Dabo for sure.
Well, and do you think that perhaps that the way that it comes out and the way that it's worded when he says things like this perhaps are a bit of a misconstruction in terms of he's saying something that sounds different than what he really means, perhaps?
I mean, it could be. I mean, I don't know. Like you said, Dabo's such a free-flowing talker. He could. I mean, he might say stuff, and then later he's like, "Oh, probably shouldn't have said that."
Yeah, I think it's just an example how much I think it's just an example how much he believes in high school recruiting. Like he really feels like he's supplementing his roster every year with high school kids, and that's how he's going to do it. So when he says, we just signed a whole kid full of transfers. Like he's being serious. We're getting new people on our roster that you should be excited about because they're excited about them, right? And that's kind of what, and I know we'll go into the next quote, but anytime I hear some of these quotes from Dabo, it all kind of goes back to the same thing is we really like our guys. He says it over and over again. And the next quote that we're going to go over is basically saying the same thing is that we just really like who we have in the building and who we have coming in. It's just a different way of saying it.
Yeah, before we get into the next quote that came across the wire today, I do want to just throw this out there. I wrote a column about all of this, and I wrote it before the second quote became available. So maybe it's a little bit dated. I think the point's probably still the same. That's not up on our website yet. That's ClemsonSportsMedia.com, by the way. But that's going to go up later this evening or maybe tomorrow morning. But keep a lookout for this column. I'll go ahead and give you a sneak peek. I threw some numbers in there, and it's just to illustrate what I believe to be the unsustainability of not using the transfer portal at all. Since the transfer portal became a full-fledged entity in college football, Clemson has lost 35 players to the portal. they've brought in less than 5. I forget the exact number. It's less than 5. And the ones that they've brought in have been walk-on type of guys. That they are not impact guys. That they're second and third string depth pieces. You can bring in all of the great high school recruits that you want. That's well and good. But when you're losing 10, 12, 13 players a year to the transfer portal, Clemson already signed small classes anyway by comparison. I mean, it's not uncommon to have a 17, 18-man class. Really, 21, 22 on average is about the biggest that we'll see Dabo Swinney sign. It may not take effect within a year, 2, 3 years, but once you reach about the 4 or 5 year mark, that level of attrition compared with the level of talent and the amount of guys that you're bringing in eventually begins to erode away the fabric of your program. It starts to erode the depth. That's my biggest thing, is that nobody's asking Dabo to go out and sign 30 transfers like Florida State and Ohio State have done. Just go out and get 7 or 8 good guys that will supplement your roster who can step in and play. And
I don't
quite
even
frankly,
think,
I don't think that's too much.
Yeah, and frankly, I don't even think you need that many. I mean, I think if he and this is just me. I mean, I'm kind of on the line too, like Dustin was telling me earlier. You know, I mean, there's sometimes I feel like we need to go get transfers, and then there's sometimes I feel like we're good. Like, and this is one of those years where at least at receiver, I think we're good. And maybe we should have got some help, you know, in that. I'm just saying this because of what I saw at the spring game, right? But maybe we needed some help, like in the quarterback room. I don't know, but it would have been nice to bring somebody in the quarterback room as a experienced backup. But yeah, like sometimes I feel like we are good, and I believe what Dabo's saying. But then there's other years where I'm like, okay, like maybe we need to bring in an offensive lineman, maybe we need to bring in a defensive end, maybe, you know what I'm saying? So. From the transfer portal, and it just doesn't happen. And then we, you know, somebody gets hurt, and we're just kind of scrapping, I feel like. So, yeah, that's kind of where I am on that. Like,
yeah, there's certain areas where
I think for 1 minute the last couple of years, a receiver would have helped.
Yeah, I know, but I'm with Cliff. I really like our receiver room heading into this year. I really do. It would have been nice to, you know, add an instant impact guy, but I think that you got plenty of talent there. There are certain positions, so I'll go over a couple. So obviously quarterback, like you said, Cliff, we have 2 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster. You know, they haven't put Trent Pierman on scholarship yet. And the fourth guy the fourth guy is really Paul Tyson, who's not really on scholarship anymore. He's more of like a you know, graduate assistant coach almost.
Yeah.
You know, the one position that they did try was a center, which I completely agree with, because no matter who you start next year, starting someone who has never played center really at this level yet. Linthicum's been in the program, but, you know, minimal snaps. And then I would have brought in a left tackle. You know, I really think that left tackle is a question mark heading into this year. I like Tristan Lee, but I think some competition in that spot would have been great. There's one guy in particular. I know everyone always asks, you know, you want these portal players, like, give me some names that you would have brought in. Well, there was a guy named J.C. Davis who transferred to Illinois from New Mexico. He started as a freshman and was the highest graded left tackle in all of Group of 5. And Illinois signed him, and he's going to start at Illinois in the Big Ten at left tackle this year. You can't tell me we can't sign a guy like that can actually come in and push Tristan Lee. You know, worst case scenario, Tristan Lee beats him out, and now you have a guy with 3 years eligibility behind him that you can develop at left tackle, right? Yeah. So it's just certain. It's almost like he's saying, you know, I can either develop or I can go to transfer portal. And other programs are saying, look, especially Florida State, you know, I'm going to bring in these transfers and I'm going to develop them while they're here, and then, you know, I'm going to go beat you with seniors.
Right. And look, I'm just going to piggyback off of that, Dustin. You got a guy that was at New Mexico who transferred to Illinois. Look at the level of the programs respectively. You can't tell me that if you wanted to go out and get this guy, a guy that could actually help you, and if he's having to choose between Clemson and Illinois, I mean, Clemson, Illinois. I think the Tigers are a little bit higher up the totem pole than the Illini are. So you can't tell me that he would not have at least been interested in Clemson.
Yeah, that's going to be a guy I have my eye on this college football season. I'm going to see how he's doing in Illinois, and if he's playing well, I'm going to be pretty disappointed we didn't sign him, and if we see what we saw from Tristan Lee last year at left tackle.
Yeah, and look, this is going to segue into the next quote, and this was a little bit of a fresher soundbite. It was either, I just read it today, maybe he said it yesterday or earlier today. Either way, it's less than 24 hours old. And he comes out, Dabo Swinney comes out and says, well, you know what? We haven't really signed any transfer portal guys because, frankly, they're just not good enough to play for Clemson. They're not good enough.
Yeah.
Look, this is going to be perhaps I'm going to say it. We said we'd keep it PG, and we are, but I'm going to say it. That is blatantly tone deaf. Because you can believe what you want to believe about the transfer portal, but if ever there comes a time where you do decide to dip into it and go and try to get an impact guy, well, guess what? What are teams going to do? What are other coaches going to tell these guys? Well, look what he said. Look what Dabo Swinney said. He just said you're not good enough. He just said you're not good enough to come play for me. Yeah. That is going to be used against Dabo Swinney from now into the second coming.
Yeah, it's gonna sit there for a while. I feel like, and people are gonna bring it up, and when they're interested in a transfer, and like it's gonna be brought up from other coaches, and it's gonna. I think that quote, other than other quotes, I think that one's might hurt him the most. That's just how I feel about that.
Yeah, I feel like he's kind of stepping in mud there, especially if you go looking how many transfers that Duke and Florida State brought in before last season, and then you're losing games to teams that are heavy transfer portal. It's not a good look at all. So I didn't like that quote. I know. Most people are going to skip over the fact that he said most players. It's kind of a disingenuous thing to say. Everyone knows it. You can't go out there and say that publicly. Can't do it.
No, you really can't.
And look, a lot of these guys in the transfer portal are not bums. These are former 4- and 5-star guys. Some of them who were All-Americans at their previous school. Does anybody need to be reminded about Andrew Makuba, who was a 2-time All-American at Clemson and then went to Texas? I guarantee you Steve Sarkisian wasn't sitting there saying, well, you know what, Andrew Makuba's just not good enough to come play for me at Texas. I promise he wasn't. So it's just I think of all the things that he could have said, the fact is that comment is going to be very damaging. And I think it's going to be a long-term effect. Because for the next several years, coaches will turn to players who maybe we reach out to and say, look, he just said he doesn't want you. He just said you're not good enough. Come play for me.
Yeah. It's going to hurt him in the next couple of years. I have a feeling. A good feeling.
So
I was at a point where I thought Dabo would start, dipping in the transfer portal, maybe take a player or two, but I'm not sure when that's ever going to happen at this point. I thought by this season it would be like, okay, took a player or two, and I just think like if you got to come out net positive to the portal. So if you lose, a starter at safety, you should be in the portal looking for a starter level safety. Even if a Kylan Griffin, a Kylan Webb, or a Robert Billings, Sherrod Koval beats out the guy you brought in, you just created competition in the room. But you lost a starter level safety. You should be looking for a starter level safety in the portal. Just come out net positive. Don't go and try and overhaul your roster, but you have a legitimate spot on your roster that's now a void. So go fill it. That's really all that I've ever looked for.
Well, fact is, Clemson's not getting any transfers for the 2024 season. That ship has already sailed. So, we can sit here and debate what Dabo says and the validity of it or its merits and whatever we think about it. But at the end of the day, We're not the ones getting paid to make those decisions. And as a former boss of mine once told me, he's also a good friend of mine who I love dearly. He said, your opinion and 50 cents won't buy you a cup of coffee. So, that's about the truth in this situation. Our opinion doesn't really matter too much.
Yeah, we're just here to talk about it. Just gives us stuff to talk about on our podcast, right?
Yeah. But also the other thing, and I don't mean to go on a rant. I don't mean to go on a rant here either. But another thing is if you look how college football has changed now you're looking at potentially playing 16, 17 games in a season. Like, depth has never been more important in college football if you want to go, the distance where Clemson ultimately, they talked about last season, wants to go. I mean, you're going to have to play 16, 17 games to get there. So depth in the college football level has never been more important, and he refuses to add it.
Yeah.
If you check out our fine sponsors, Arden's Burger Grill, and we love them to death at 1280 18 Mile Road Central. Go get some double dip wings, a mouth-watering burger. They just got great food, and they'll take care of all your game day needs. And you can tell them the crew from around the Paul sent you. And then our newest sponsor, Wanderlust, and we're glad to have them on board. They're at 2902 North Main Street in Anderson, South Carolina, Suite C. So go check out Wanderlust and boost your wellness game and energize your game with Odyssey Elixir and one of their other great products. And we can't recommend them highly enough, so go check them out. And then we've got Dustin here. And I'll tell you what, Dustin's probably far more insightful than you and I could ever be. I mean, you have such an eloquent way of breaking things down. So, it's just fantastic to have you on every now and then. We can pry you away and get you on camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man. It was a good time. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
I love having you on, man. It's great. So.
Yeah. So, hey, everybody, if you like what we do, if you like what you see and you like what you hear, then don't be afraid to tackle that subscribe button. Drop us a like. We appreciate it. Leave a comment. Give us feedback. If there's something you'd like us to talk about, drop that in the comment section as well. Nothing's off limits here at Around the Paul. We'll talk about anything Clemson athletics. So just let us know what you want to hear. And until then, check us out. Our website is clemsonsportsmedia.com. As you just heard Cliff say, lots of great stuff already there. Tons of great stuff coming. And then you can follow us on social media as well at CU Sports Media on X, formerly known as Twitter to us old heads. And we'll have lots of scores and updates and everything there as well. So lots of ways to connect with us here at Clemson Sports Media, and we want you to be a part of the family as well. So for me, Garrett Mitchell, Clifton Kennedy, and Dustin Black, that's going to do it for us on this episode of Around the Paul. We'll talk to everybody later, but until then, just a friendly reminder that it is a great day to be a Clemson Tiger. So with that said, go Tigers and good night.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.